Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Sword and Strategy Podcast. As always, I am Paul Parris, and with me is Josh Holmes. Josh, I think this is number 5, right?
Number
I think it's number
5.
5. Here we go. Hey, before we get into what we're going to talk about in just a minute, if anybody's out there watching, we would love for you to like the video, subscribe to the video or the channel, push the little click. Oh, there's your mouse. Click the little bell so you get notifications when we show up. It just really helps us if you could. So like, subscribe, notify. Anyways, so Josh, what are we talking about today?
Metamucil. I'm just kidding.
Metamucil.
We're not talking about Metamucil.
This is a health for people with constipation. That's what we're talking about. Is that even what Metamucil is?
I
Isn't
thought
it
it had
fiber?
to do with old people.
It's probably old people fiber. Anyways, that's not what we're talking about. So what are we
Not
talking
at all.
about, Josh?
We are going to cover one of my favorite topics as far as leadership and business and life in general, and that's character and integrity.
Ooh, two really big words. I think that a lot of times feel like they're synonymous almost.
Mhm.
People with high character typically have high integrity, that kind of a thing. But there is some distinct differences between the two that I think it's important to talk about. So I
Agreed.
love this. I think as leaders, both character and integrity are vital to what we can do as leaders, whether
Yeah.
it's in a business setting, whether it's at your house, with your family, whether it's with your friends, wherever you're in life, character and integrity are huge.
Right. I mean,
Big.
it just to me it's part of just being a good human being.
Right.
Character and integrity, having those two things, allows you to be just a better person for society. Whether you have like a
True.
religious background, a non-religious background, whatever it may be, that just makes you a better person. Having great character, having great integrity.
Yeah. And I think the sad reality, honestly, Josh, is when you look at the landscape of like the business world in particular,
Mhm.
really even non-business world, there is a major lack of both of those in society today.
Yes. Yep.
There's not a lot of character out there. There's not a lot of integrity. So you know what? It's time to bring that back. I think
Bring it back.
bring it back. I almost thought you were about to sing like a Backstreet Boys song or something, but you didn't. So I'll move on. So we don't sing.
Characters back. All right.
Ooh, that was just as bad as I thought it was going to be. So let's move on. So let's talk about character first. So how about I'll give a definition of character, and then we'll kind of expand upon that. I think before we hit good old integrity up. But character can simply be defined as the mental and moral qualities that are distinctive to an individual. Everybody has a different character.
Mm-hmm.
You may have some similar like characteristics of somebody else, but your character is unique to you. So a question I have for you, Josh, and maybe other people listening out there, is character something that you're born with, or is it something that needs to be developed, or both?
I don't think you're ever born with character and integrity. I think that's something I personally believe that's something you have to actively work on. I think we're all born with an inherent goodness, but not character. Character is something that you build, you develop, you discipline.
Right.
And the same with integrity, really. But they'll flow back and forth, ebb and flow.
I don't know why you gave me that for that, but
I don't know. I like it.
I'm there with you.
I've never been able to use that in a sentence. I don't even know if I used it right.
That's so funny. I was a little.
Is this ebb and flow? Is that ebb and flow?
Sure, in a way, sure.
Sure, there's a band too.
Anyway, pretty sure it wasn't. Anyways, keep going.
So that's how I feel about it. That's my personal take on it. Is that it's something you have to actively work at, because both of them are things that you really develop when nobody's watching. Like it's something, character integrity is something that you do when you're not being seen. It's the thing you do when you're not trying to show off. You're not trying to show up. You're just This is who I am. I'm going to do the right thing. Doesn't matter if anybody else sees it.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think we live in a society today where everything is all about look at me,
Mm-hmm.
look at what I've done, look at how social media is, and here we are on a social media platform putting this out there. But
So
that's what
look at
social
us.
media is. So look at us, look at us. No, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Society anymore is look at how great I am at this. I went and did this, or hey, I went and did this, and you should think very highly of me.
Look what I can do.
Yeah, exactly. Mad TV shout out if anybody's seen that. Stewie or Stewart, excuse me, Stewart. Anyways, like for example, um, uh, I was overseas helping out some individuals during the tsunami that hit Thailand back in '04. '05. We went to help and
I
um,
didn't know this.
gives yeah we went I went with a group in 2005. We gave some supplies and helped pass out food and other things to refugees and villagers that had lost their homes. And there wasn't fanfare. We just went along, handed out the stuff and helped them any way we could. But one of the days that we were there was a very large, nationally known organization uh, from the U.S. that is there for disaster relief
Mm-hmm.
that showed up. And we happened to be at the refugee camp they were showing up to. And these are people in like dirt huts, the floor's dirt. You have a family of 10 or more sleeping in a place that's, maybe a 10 by 10 room
God.
or something like that, like really, really tight, like really
Yeah.
tough. Because
Yeah.
those people lost so much. But while we were there, all of a sudden we see this convoy of cars driving in. And it was like, oh, I wonder what this is. And the cars get there, they end up getting into the middle of this little village, set up this big platform, put their banner and their logo up so they could say, here's who we are. Put the guy who was in charge of it locally, put his picture up there, got a big, bullhorn out and would announce, hey, we are from the such and such. I won't say it out here. And we're here to help. And they brought welcome mats for the people. Why do they need welcome mats? Everything's dirt. Like, what's a welcome mat going to do? They need food. They need water. They need things to cook with. They need basic health care, that kind of thing. They don't need a mat. But all they did is they piled hundreds and hundreds of mats in a big, huge pile and then said, ready, go. And everybody ran to get them and went back to their dwelling.
This
And
sounds
that
like it sounds
it's
like some kind
it's
of weird parody comedy.
it sounds like it, and the sad thing is, it's the reality of what happens a lot. PSA to folks out there: if you're donating to different organizations, know where that money is truly going and what they're truly
Yeah.
spending,
Yeah.
because this group was all about look how we made an impact when they didn't. In fact, half the families turned away and said no. They just wanted food. So character, right? The people that we were supporting, character was a big deal to them. And character is not it can be a front and center thing, I think, but that's not necessarily what defines character, to your point
Mm-hmm.
that you're making a few minutes ago.
Well, then, so that kind of goes along with like a pay it forward mentality. When you pay
Mm.
it forward, something good happening to you, your character integrity usually puts you in a place where I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to help the next person in line. And
Right.
and and it doesn't have to be what y'all did was amazing, and it can be on small scales too. Just something like simple things that I think of when I think of character integrity are people that go and get meat at the grocery store. Halfway down the chip aisle, they decide they don't want the meat, so they put it in the middle of the chips. That's that meat is going to ruin. So
Oh, man.
why would you do that? Well, it's because it's a very simple way of saying, your character and your integrity is not where it should be. And most
Sure.
people are gonna be like, that's ridiculous. No, that's not ridiculous. That's there's so many things that go into that meat. There's so many things that go out of that meat when it goes wrong. And it's simple things like that. Walking past trash, picking it up, um, to throw it away. It's not your trash, somebody else's. I get that. But little things like that also help. They help out the world. Just little pieces to the puzzle.
Little pieces. Yeah, I think it's almost basic human dignity sometimes.
Yes.
Can build character, but and I didn't tell that story to say, hey, look at what our organization did compared to this other one. It's just an example of what character is not. Character is
Well,
not showy, is not flashy,
in a
in
prime example,
in that
go
kind of
ahead.
way. Now go ahead.
You, I've known you for how many years now? What, 10 maybe?
Oh, sure.
We'll go with 10.
I don't know.
Um, I've never heard that story.
Mm,
Like you've never been like, check this out. I did this. Toot toot. Here's my horn. Toot toot.
that was a different kind of toot. And I just made that whole story up for this purpose. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's why I've never heard of it.
no, no, it was real. It was real. Here's a quote I want to read from Michael Josephson. It says, "Character is the most, or excuse me, character is the moral strength to do the right thing, even when it costs more than you want to pay." I think character. I think it speaks to the point that character is a sacrifice.
Mm.
To have a strong character, to be a man or a woman, a person of character, you kind of have to die to yourself a little bit. There's got to be things that you're like, man, I don't want to do that, but I'm going to do it anyways because it's the right thing to do. Just like that is saying. But I think we live in this world where dying to self is almost unheard of anymore.
Right.
No,
So
no,
it's a lost
it's
art.
yeah, it's more no, uplift yourself. Take more on for yourself. You are the most important. And we've lost this idea that we're supposed to be helping other people, even
Mm-hmm.
when it's uncomfortable for us, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's part of sacrificing to humanity, I guess, or your human dignity. Is when you're doing these little things and you're taking a little piece of yourself with it. To me, it makes it so much more rewarding. And to your point, when you're doing those things, and you have to tell yourself, I don't really want to do this today. I don't want to do
Right.
this for this person. I don't want to do this because I can't stand these people. Um, when you
Sure.
do it anyway, you're building your character. You're
100%.
honing you're honing your skills in life,
Yep.
and it's going to not only is it going to make you a better person. In time, you're no longer. I'm going to use a quote from a friend of mine. You're no longer the problem. You're the solution to a world, like you said, that's no longer about character and no longer about integrity or human dignity or being a great person or just having care and kindness for the world. Grace, we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
These all tie in deeply. They are rooted in character and integrity. And you just feel better about yourself. You just feel so much better about yourself when you practice some humility and gain some character out of it.
Yeah. Agreed. You know, character is attractive. And I don't necessarily mean in a certain way, but as a boss, right, as a leader, when you have employees under you, if they can see that you are a person of character, of high character, their willingness to kind of follow your lead or to maybe even go above and beyond themselves
Mm-hmm.
or to do stuff that maybe they don't want to do is just magnified by that. If you have a boss, and I know I've had some, I know you've had some where character is not very good.
Mm-hmm.
They're individuals of really low moral character. Um, you don't want to do anything for that boss. You don't want to do anything for that leader. In fact, you almost do the opposite. You want to do everything to subvert them almost because you're
Right.
like, they're just there to harm me or just to make themselves look good. They're not here for me.
And that goes back to that sacrifice. You know, let's say you are shining your character and shining your integrity out there. You're really showing people what it's like to go above and beyond for
Mm-hmm.
not for a job, but to go above and beyond for just making yourself greater. Then you know somebody's watching, somebody's looking, somebody's going to be taking that information, inputting it, breaking it down, and they're like, oh, wait a minute. You know, this guy or gal seems to be happy. They're doing all these weird things where they're just sacrificing themselves for, somebody else's gain. Maybe there's something to this character and integrity stuff.
Yeah. It brings up a question, Josh. Is is building character easy?
No,
Why?
because it does, as you were saying earlier, there is a little piece of yourself that you have to kind of push, discipline to go over that barrier. That's what builds character is discomfort or not getting comfortable. Those kind of things are what help build character, along with other good qualities that we have. But building character is hard, in my opinion, but it's an easy mindset. It really
Okay.
is. Once you do it for a while, it becomes like second nature to you to do that simple thing. Because not all of them are big. Like you don't have to, travel around the world or, I mean, you can. Those are great things. But like I said earlier, it's just simple as making somebody else's job easier, even if you don't work there. Like I go back to grocery stores,
Yeah.
home improvement chains. The buggy that you take out to your car, you empty all your stuff. Why leave it there? You got shopping things you can take it back to, or you could walk it a few extra feet, maybe even a quarter of a mile. That's ridiculous. But you could walk it back to the store, and those are little things that help build that character inside you to go a little bit further.
Yeah. It makes me think too. Like, did you ever have it when you were a kid where your parents or somebody made you do something? You're like, this sucks. I don't want to do this. And their response was, this will build character. And all you want to do is be, you're like, you're a liar.
Yeah,
Character
this
is
isn't going to
not, this
build
is build
nothing.
nothing but my anger towards you. But when you think back on those times and you look with a different lens, it those kind of things, the hard things, really do build character. They they really make us better people.
They really do. And oddly enough, I have a story about that.
Sweet.
So, um, I won't say I won't bring people into it, but I had to move a boulder in my yard as a kid. Right? I'm 14 years old, and it was to
Was it a
keep.
nice boulder?
It wasn't. It was the most
Oh.
ruthless boulder I think I've ever moved in my life. I didn't have any tools. I didn't have anything to move it with. And at the time, I was furious because it was summer. We were out of school, and I knew I was like, "This is just busy works. All this is busy work. Just putting me." I had a friend over. They watched me move the boulder.
Oh.
So, so I'm moving this boulder with each flip, with each roll. I'm getting more and more I had to move it like 50 feet. It was, and the
for,
boulder was like what?
for what purpose? No, you could have kept talking. I was going to
I
interrupt you
still
anyways,
don't
but for what
know
purpose?
what the purpose was other than to get it out of the yard. It was in the way. So this,
Okay.
and I'm telling you, when I say this boulder, and maybe I'm over exaggerating because I was 14 at the time, but this boulder was like 2 basketball sizes. It was like massive. And I don't even know how much it weighed. I couldn't pick it up. All I could do was roll it, right? And so as I'm getting more and more angry, I finally get into the creek. So makes a big splash, which that part was fun. But looking back on that now, it was a building character moment. One, I was doing something that really made me furious, and there was no purpose to it
Sure.
other than, you know, making our yard look aesthetically better. That was
Yeah.
pretty much it. It was a character building moment, mainly because it was friction. It was something I didn't want to do. It was uncomfortable. It was painful. It was hard. And there was no real purpose to it. But looking back on it now, I appreciate those moments like that, that a very important man gave me to do,
Sure.
that allowed me to build the character at a younger age. It didn't kick in till an older age. People that know me understand that, but those moments, I think, were the moments that allow me to work harder, that
Yeah.
that make me not, fear hard work or worry about physical labor. So I'm still capable to go out there and do them to this day.
Yeah.
So, little things like that, I think, are things that help you build that character up.
Um, there's a quote uh, that says, "Suffering produces endurance. Endurance produces character, and character produces hope." And I think that's 100% true. At the same time, we don't always have to build character through suffering.
True.
Suffering isn't always just a prerequisite. You can only build character if you suffer. There's other ways to build character, I think. We can explore that a little bit.
I think it's a fast track. I think suffering is a fast track
Yeah.
to an end game, but I believe you're 100% spot on. I don't think it's necessary to suffer all the time to build character.
No, just yeah. There's plenty of instances out there where I know I have had character built within me. Just going out there and seeing other people and their character, and seeing their work ethic or their moral ethics or their integrity, like we're going to talk about in a minute, and that's made me want to be a better person. That's made me want to follow in those footsteps. And there wasn't suffering there. It was me watching somebody I trust. Somebody I trust.
So, if I could ask you a question,
Yeah.
who who would you say in your life has helped you build that character more than most? Not necessarily through suffering, but maybe by just their actions and their leadership.
For me, my character really was defined by my grandfather. I was at my grandfather's house quite a bit growing up. Did a lot of stuff over the summer. Camped with him. We were in the same city. Lived really close, so saw him all the time. But seeing how he handled himself, seeing how he treated other people, seeing how even when he had worked all week or was gone for a whole week traveling all over the state of Texas where we lived, or New Mexico or Colorado or wherever he was having to travel, and then coming home and taking care of the stuff that he just didn't really want to, but would do it, was a big influence on my life. He he's been a big influence, or he was. Unfortunately, he passed away 8 years ago. But he was probably the most instrumental in developing my character as a young man, without
Oddly
a doubt.
enough, and I think this is, I mean, I'm going to bridge into something here, because oddly enough, my grandfather was also my role model when it comes to character and integrity. I've always said that if I could be half the man my grandfather was, then I'd still be a great man,
Sure.
because he was just so good, so patient, so kind, so hardworking. They never backed down from any kind of job, like of hard work or doing. And like you said, like just coming home, being tired, and still getting after it. Like
Right.
there was no off. And and growing up in a time where they went through the Great Depression and things like that, it just, there's so many things that could have went, and he decided to walk the path of a strong, good character, great integrity man to lead his family. That I think that's where our problems are starting to stress from. I think you don't have a lot of those figures like that that went through really bad times and they
Yeah.
became really strong, good men to lead.
So I think, even though we both talked about our grandfathers, really it can be anybody
Mm-hmm.
as somebody to go off of. But I think it does speak to kind of the breakdown of the family in society today. Everything's a lot more individualistic. Finding your own path and creating your own future and your own truth and stuff like that, where the family is not as, I would say it's important, but it's not as emphasized as it used to be. And that's okay if you have some, if I know there's people out there that have really rough family lives or,
Right, right.
that kind of thing. So you're not going to find somebody to base your character off of in that setting. Potentially you might find what's bad, and I want to talk about that for a second. But I think it is important, family speaking, for families to be the character example that they want their kids or their grandkids to follow. I think it's a really important thing that we won't really dive into here because we could go on for a long time with that.
Right,
But I think it's important.
but know that having a great character and a great integrity, those things will help you as a leader in your home, in your business. You know, practicing those skills, those two in general, will
Yeah,
span out over everything else that will help you in life.
right. So two other things I want to hit on in character. Then I want to jump over to integrity two. Two, two, one, two, whatever. Two by two hands of blue. Anybody see Firefly? That was a
No.
great reference.
Copyright.
Oh, don't come after us, copyright people. Anyways, I said Firefly.
Now they won't.
Credit to all the writers of that place. Anyways, so I think what you said before, character needs to be balanced with humility. You said, earlier on in this conversation about humility and grace and all those things, because high character without kind of any humility, any grace, can turn into bad character really quickly.
True.
People that come that's where your character is not so much about how you're there to help others, but then it becomes all about you at
Mm-hmm.
that point. You still got to humble yourself. So let me ask this, and then we'll move on, and we'll talk about this for just a minute. But we're talking about good character and the trials that help us get there, and you know um, the humility and grace and even integrity that we'll talk about in a minute, and other things that help us get there. Doing things that you don't want to do and still do, and all that kind of stuff. But what is bad character? What does that look like?
Jafar,
He is a bad character. You're right.
the bad dude.
Oh gosh.
To me, bad character is, well, I mean, obviously you can go completely opposite. Good character being doing the thing that's hard to do, you know, even though it's hard to do. Bad character is just, I mean, it's to me, it's being a bad person. I mean, that's just as easy as it is. It's putting the meat in the chips. I don't know how many times I have to talk about that. That's a bad character. Get the meat out of the chips. It's got to stay cold, people. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, gosh. I had totally forgot you made that reference. And when you said get the meat out of I thought you were going to say like salsa or queso and be like, dude, that's really good. I don't know what the heck you're
No,
talking
no,
about.
that's delicious.
That's delicious. But I get it. Meat in the chip aisle. Cool. I think that bad character, yeah, I think it's going against human decency. I think it is placing a me first mentality over everything, treating others as lower than yourself, or having this air of superiority about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the corporate world, like in business world, it's people that use others as the rungs of their ladder to success.
Right,
Right.
stepping on heads.
Right. Like I remember having a boss one time where before this individual came in to our company, I was in charge of revitalizing this big project with a sister company, and had spent months reworking things, how all that was going to work out, how we were going to benefit off of each other. This whole program I had to try to re-engineer from the start. I brought a few people along with me to help make sure I was on the right path, make sure we as a company were on the right path. I had individuals from the other company, all this. And then I had a boss that gets hired, and they come in about a week or two, something like that, before we went to this big national conference. And they were in one or two meetings with it. But then we go to this big national conference, and there's a breakout session with one of the groups with the sister company,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to talk about the program that I've been in charge of. But I wasn't invited to the group. Instead, my new boss was invited to the group, or disinvited me and took the spot I should have had, and instead said, "Hey, I've been working hard on this project,
Mm.
and you guys are going to really love this." And I found out later, because everybody in that other company knew I had done it, but um, it just was a big "what are you doing" kind of thing. And, and
Yeah,
and that's the kind of thing I think of when I think of bad character. Somebody who's in
that's
it for themselves, somebody who doesn't care who they hurt, doesn't care where the ideas come from. They're all mine in business. Your idea is my idea. You ever heard that?
oh yeah,
Where the bosses will say something like, whatever you do, great. It all falls under me, so it's mine.
that's a perfect example. Taking credit where credit is not due.
Yeah.
That is a great example of bad character, and just leaning on your people in a bad way. You know, telling lies. Being disruptive. Those kind of things in the business force where you're trying to keep a team solid, make a team the best that they can possibly be. If you're taking their ideas, stealing their ideas, if you're, you know, just constantly badgering them,
Yeah.
micromanaging them, those things all fall in line with some bad character, in my opinion.
The last thing I want to say, and this will segue into integrity, but here's how I define the two: good character and bad character in leadership, in business, and what to follow. So, somebody with good character, when times are good, they're going to tout the abilities of their team.
Mm-hmm.
My team got us there. But when everything hits the fan, they're going to step up and say, "It's on me. It's my
It's
team. I'm the
my bad.
leader." Right?
Yeah.
My fault. A person of bad character and integrity, which we'll hit just a second, does the exact opposite. When times are good, they take all the credit.
Mm-hmm.
They're only doing this because of me. Then when times are bad, it's the opposite. We're in this bad situation because my employees suck. There's no credit taken.
I don't have a good
Um,
team.
right. And I think that really is more, I mean, it's character, but it really goes into integrity. So let's go into integrity, Josh. We've been talking about character a whole bunch. Let's talk about character,
It
integrity.
just so happens I have a definition for integrity. It's almost like we
What?
planned this. So, so integrity is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles that you're constantly uphold, even when it's
Hmm.
difficult or when no one is watching. That's the big kicker for me is the no one is watching part. We all have, obviously, you and I are not perfect. We don't practice great character and great integrity every single second of every single day.
No, nobody can. Let's just
Right.
be let's just be real. No, nobody can.
We're human. We're not robots. But to me, the integrity side of it is more about what you're doing when nobody's watching. What you're doing, are you doing the right thing? Are you making the right call? Because it's easy or it's hard, whatever it may be, is most people will do it in front of people,
Yeah.
but when they're by themselves, oh yeah, I'm not doing that. Well, that's where integrity comes into play. That's where it's important. It's the honesty aspect. It's honesty of yourself. You have to be true to yourself in order to have real good integrity.
I agree. I think honesty is the biggest part of integrity, or if not the biggest, one of the biggest. It's equal with anything else out there, if not the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
Because without honesty, you can't have integrity.
No.
We say honest, and you need to have honesty and you need to have integrity. I have never met somebody that you go, man, they've got some integrity, but man, do they lie. They lie all the time, right?
The
Like,
biggest liar. They're
they're the
bad.
biggest
They're
liar.
Pinocchio.
Or somebody like, man, they're honest. Now, can you be honest without integrity? You could.
Mm-hmm.
You could be honest because, I mean, if you're a terrible person and you're honest
Mm-hmm.
about your motives, man, I don't have integrity. Oh, you're right. You don't. At least you were honest about it.
Oh, I'm totally going to take advantage of the system, and I'm going to take your idea and I'm going to run
Right.
with it, man.
Right. Um, but to have high integrity, you have to have high honesty.
That's true. And you have to be accountable. That's another side of integrity, in my opinion. It's holding yourself accountable to a different standard. Um, that gets you to that next level of integrity in order to utilize it in life, in my opinion. The accountability side of it. You have to be honest, but you also have to be accountable for what you're doing.
Yeah. So how do you do that in a business setting, Josh? How do you display integrity? What does that look like?
To me, integrity is more important when people aren't looking. That's more of the character side of it that attaches.
Sure.
So it's doing the things in business that you know are not going to really matter, but they're the right thing to do at say the end of the shift, beginning of the shift, getting things ready, getting things done. You could just wing it, you could just go for it. That doesn't make you a good leader as far as those kind of aspects go. So what do? You take care of your team behind the scenes. You make sure that they're ready to do their job. You make sure that everything's going to go off without a hitch. And when it does hitch, then you're ready for that piece already in place. I'm not sure what I just said.
Who
Ready for that
knows?
piece already in place.
I tuned you out. I'm just kidding.
Sweet.
I didn't.
Honesty.
Yeah.
That's
No,
honesty of a bad character,
no.
Paul.
No, I was listening. Um, no, I think with integrity, you use the word accountability a couple of times,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's really important. If you're going to have integrity, especially when things go sideways, and in business, in life they'll go sideways,
Mm-hmm.
right? Life is not easy. Life is hard for everybody, and it may look different for everybody. Your
Right.
your hardships may be different than somebody else's, but everybody goes through hardships.
Mm-hmm.
And integrity is, even especially when it's something that maybe you did or you caused, standing up and saying, you know what, I caused this. This is my fault. Putting the blame on yourself, where it's due and where it's needed,
Mm-hmm.
is really important. So many times, and we talked about right at the end of character, but so many times we look to blame others for the things that happen to us. There's not a lot of personal responsibility that we're taking
Right.
for it, when really there needs to be. And sometimes we take personal responsibility for stuff that we didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in leadership, you take responsibility for stuff that Charles over here, man, that guy screwed up really big. Like, this guy screwed up. But am I going to go tell everybody in the world that Charles screwed up? No, because ultimately, as a leader, it's my responsibility that my team performs and that Charles performs. I don't even know if I've had a guy. Have I had a guy named Charles work for me? If I did and you're listening,
7.
sorry, I don't
I've had
remember. Yeah,
7 of them.
I've had 35. But at the same
Everybody's Charles.
time, it's your response. You want to take up for your team. You
Right.
know,
And consistency in the workforce helps with, that to the integrity side of it, being constant with the right thing is going to help you build that integrity with your team. Like you said, the whole side to that victim mentality, of, well, it's not my fault. Well, you're the leader. You need to be consistent, whether it's good or bad. And that helps build that integrity side of your leadership qualities.
Agreed. Have you ever been in a situation where
Several.
somebody, yeah, a lot of situations, um, never on the Jersey Shore though. So have you ever, have you ever, oh gosh, have you ever been in a situation where somebody at work or in your life or whoever questions your integrity? And when they did, if the answer is yes, maybe you've been really fortunate. Nobody's ever questioned your integrity. But if they have, what have you done? How do you overcome something like that?
I think that's actually probably more common than people would think, especially if you're being challenged in an environment that people don't want you to succeed. Your integrity is going to come into question often. Why
Yeah,
wouldn't it? That's a good way to get somebody in a hot seat. Um, I would think earlier in my career, I can't think of any like specifics, but earlier in my career, I'm sure my integrity was challenged because I didn't have the greatest integrity, early in my career. I wouldn't say I was a bad person. I would never step on people to get above them. I would never do things like that. But
sure.
this again for me, it goes back to the small things because, and I'll quote Albert Einstein on this one: "Whoever is careless with the truth in small matters cannot be trusted with important matters." Because
Mm.
if you're not willing to do the small things, what about the challenging things? You're probably not going to do those either.
of
So
course.
I would think in those situations where you get challenged, then have the receipts. I mean, that's the best fight for that one is having receipts for your integrity. Now that's hard when your integrity is when no one's watching, right?
Right.
So,
Where's the receipts? Yep.
but I could guarantee you that if your integrity is challenged
Yeah.
and you've got your team behind you and they know what kind of person you are, they'll fight for you.
That is extremely true. And I'll try to do a quick story because that happened to me. I had not even a boss, just a guy I was kind of working with. I'd worked with, it was when I was working for an auction company and I had all these different auctions on the West Coast. And the guy who was running all the auctions on the West Coast needed some help. He needed some data on how my team specifically was performing, and he needed it right then.
Mm.
And I gave it to him and I told him, hey, look, this is really raw data. You aren't giving me any time to parcel through it. I can't put in how when people have been off, and it's just raw data about what they were doing, super raw. Doesn't take into anything. And I said, you
Mm.
can't use this for anything concrete because it's not there. And this individual said, yeah, no problem. I understand. Thanks so much for this. Well, then he promptly got on a call with all of these managers and used the thing I sent him to show how bad of a manager I was. And how look at these numbers. Look how horrible they are. You know, you shouldn't trust this guy or you shouldn't do anything with this guy. This guy's trash, basically.
Yeah.
And I had several of those managers call me after the meeting and say, hey, we just want you to know that we had your back in the meeting. And I said, what? Well, what happened? Like, I wasn't a part of the meeting. They're like,
Why did you
what
have to?
happened? And they told me, and they said, but we knew that what the individual was saying about you was untrue because we know who you are. We saw the data. We know what you did to get that data. And
Mm-hmm.
we know that it wasn't fully fleshed out because of the timing you had, but they fully had my back. You know, building trust is huge. And you're right. I think your team, if you're a leader of people, your team will come to bat for you when you show that you're trustworthy.
Right. And that was a prime example of that. That was peers. It wasn't necessarily your team that you were over, but it was your peers that came to bat for you. And they will. Like the only people that typically people don't go to bat for are people that don't really have character and integrity. I don't know of anybody that's like, man, I hate this guy. He's really, really a good person though. I mean, it doesn't that sentence doesn't really go together. But a lot of times your receipts will be your team. they'll have your tickets punched for you.
Agreed. So I think what we need to do here, Josh, because there's so much more in integrity that I want to talk about, and we're getting close to the time that we typically wrap up. What are we talking about next week, Josh?
It looks like we're going to talk about character integrity again.
I think
next week we're going to talk about morals and ethics,
which all of this
scary,
kind of rolls into, and that is scary. And I think we'll probably start off with talking a little bit more about integrity, because it's such a big, I was trying to think of a word, and every word I thought was worse than the next, so I decided not to say any of them.
It's like a big boulder that you have to move out of your yard.
Sure, let's go with that, Josh. Let's go with that. So we'll wrap up some more talk on integrity. Who knows? Maybe we'll talk about integrity the whole time. And then we'll hit up moral and ethics next time or the time after. We're pretty loosey goosey.
We're fluid. They call it fluid in the industry. Got to be fluid. Got to ebb and flow. Ebb and flow.
Oh, we made it all the way back.
I did it twice.
What industry is that, Josh? You said this is what they call it in the industry?
All of them. All the industries. I lost you.
All of them. Yeah. Anyways, okay.
In closing, I would like to remind everybody about character and integrity. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Think on that and get back with us in the comments.
What? What are you saying? How does that have anything to do? You know what? Here's oh my gosh, Josh. Yeah. How about this? Let's finish it this way. Okay.
Finish strong.
I'll finish slightly tepid. So here we go. That's a word nobody uses anymore, tepid.
It isn't.
Anyways, all right. That's a wrap, everybody. Like a burrito, full of interesting content and sometimes hard to digest.
But so delicious.
But so delicious. Have a great one, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Okay. That's good. That's hard to start. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the fifth numero cinco podcast. I'm restarting this whole thing because I already lost myself. Okay. Woo. Here we go. Quiet. We're going to get this. It's going to roll, brother. It's going to roll. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another podcast of the Sword and Strategy podcast. That's terrible. I'm repeating myself over and over again. One more time.
The Sword and Strategy podcast.
I'm just going to say welcome to the Sword and Strategy. Yeah. Wow. That finger was so far up the nose.
Somebody's trying to fire off some neurons.